Hi there, my name is Henry. I've had a Mini Electric for nearly 3 years now, and it's been at the top of my agenda to get behind the wheel of the new generation J01 model. It's a very lovely sunny bank holiday Monday, just a couple of days after launch. I'm now behind the wheel of one, so we're just going to hear it back to the dealership because I've only got it for another half an hour. But it's been an interesting hour or so driving around kind of Leicester and Coventry, getting a feel for the new model. In a nutshell, if you have a Mini Electric at the moment, you'll like the way this drives. The kind of the increase in power on paper compared to the old model. This is an SE in sport trim with the level 3 pack. Driving it around, I wouldn't say it feels like decidedly quicker than the current or the outgoing F56 model. Maybe with a bit of timing gear, you could probably say, oh, he has a 0.1 second here or there. But day-to-day kind of driving and away from lights and around roundabouts or getting onto junctions, motorways, whatever, I wouldn't say this feels significantly quicker. So if you're expecting a leap forward in performance, I wouldn't say this is it. I would say if you've got a Cooper S E Electric F56 at the moment, this is going to feel, the SE J01 is going to feel very, very similar. I'm assuming they're leaving kind of a performance ceiling for the potentially a JCW model going forward. If that's going to be more powerful, I would say that has to be four-wheel drive, because I feel with the 200 odd brake horsepower in this one and then the slight increase in torque, you do feel it in the front wheels. The F56 Electric has quite a really good way of feeding in that power. You can tell it's got that trick motor from the i3 feeding it in at a kind of a motor level. You don't feel any kind of scrabbling or stability control intervention. In this, you do feel the front wheels kind of scrabbling a bit, and that kind of detracts from it in a way. So a little bit more raw feeling, especially with the go-kart mode complete with sound effect. That is, you can turn that off, and you can also choose which mode is your default mode. So you can set up go-kart mode, so everything's in sport, drivetrain, the dynamics, the steering. You can choose which mode is the mode that the car starts in. At the moment it's set to the core one. The experience jingle is that woohoo, and there's various other ones for the other modes. The timeless mode, or the classic mode, has kind of like an old-timey musical chime, which I guess you can turn that off there. And the experience view will change the kind of the gauges, but you can also, if you want to keep whatever your screen was on without it overwriting that, then you can turn that off there. Standard kind of home screen. I've kind of been driving around fairly-ish hard this afternoon and been sat with the air conditioning on in the baking. So just under 4 miles per kilowatt hour, I feel like is fairly all right. What I'm going to do for this kind of final leg back is just reset this trip computer. If you like your trip computers, you're spoiled for choice. You've got start of the trip, since you last charged, since the factory. This car has only done 100 miles since it left the factory over in China and shipped here. So this, I am very much giving it a good introduction to our UK road. So let's get on the road. I've got to be back by 2. Satnav says we'll be there at 10 to 2. But it's the bank holiday, and that's if I go the way it wants me to go. I would rather go through the country, so sorry Mini if I'm a little bit late, but let's get on the road. First things first, different from the F56, so you can hear the kind of performance tone of the go-kart mode. So two things, if you're coming from an F56, that's going to be a little bit odd, is that the indicators, they're like normal indicators. What I mean by that, they're not BMW kind of flick in one direction. They go up and they stay up, or go down and stay down. If you're coming from an F56 Electric, the default gear drive has no regen to it at all. You coast forever. So if you're used to the one pedal driving in the outgoing Mini Electric, you'll want to stick the car in B mode all the time. From the looks of the dash, it looks like there are 3 modes of regeneration, but I'll be honest, with my limited time in the car, I've not been able to figure out how to adjust them, and so it's the thing. The one thing I'm quite disappointed with on this test drive is that a lot of the features in this car are all done through the touchscreen, and I thought, right, okay, at least while I'm driving, if there's something I want to change, I can fall back on the voice assistant. And I have got in this car, set it up, connected my phone. I have even signed in with my Mini ID from my current car, scanned it, so I should be logged in because the car was complaining that none of the features were available until I signed it with the Mini ID, and I have now done so. For whatever reason, the car's lost its voice, quite literally. It doesn't speak to me, or hasn't spoken to me at all. So I've had the sat nav on, the option for voice instructions are on, but it hasn't actually ever given me one. You'll probably see as I go through this drive that it won't interrupt at all. It looks like, having dug through the settings very briefly, it's looking like it wants to download like a language pack, like an English UK voice, but for whatever reason it's greyed out, it doesn't want to do it. So for whatever reason, it means there's no sat nav. I cannot use the Mini voice assistant because it just goes to this language page. So there have been a number of times on this test drive where I wanted, like, oh, can I use the regen settings, just the sound settings for the stereo? They haven't worked for whatever reason. So Mini, if you're watching, this is something to maybe there's an update needed for these cars or whatever. But that's the way that's gone so far. So it's a shame, because I do like the voice control in the F56 as kind of rudimentary and basic as it is. It does get the basics right, and I can navigate through the iDrive and get to my kind of preferred settings with ease. Ooh, it tugged then. It tugged then. I think with the extra power to kind of make up for the extra weight, because this is a heavier car than the F56. I wouldn't say this is a better car to drive. I feel like I'm going to get back in my electric Mini F56 after this, and I'm not going to miss the way that this drives. I'm not to say that this drives badly, but if you've ordered one of these, or you're looking to order one of these, and you're expecting a leap forward in the way that it drives, in these last hour and a half I've had this with this car, I wouldn't say it's blown me away or been like, wow, not fallen in love with it in the way that went through about 3 years ago when I test drove the original Mini Electric. I was like, wow. That being said, if you haven't driven a Mini Electric before, and you're coming into this from, say, like an E208 or like something more mundane, then you will like the way this drives. And I wouldn't say this is a nice car to drive, but if you were expecting a leap forward over the current Mini Electric, it's not this. It's not. Maybe I've not played with the settings, maybe I've not driven it hard enough or whatever, but in this last kind of hour or so, it's not bowled me over. So one thing, if you're coming from an F56 Electric, is that you'd be used to the kind of the shortcut buttons under the infotainment screen that you can assign to basically any function on the screen, which is something I use all the time. I've got it set up how I like, and obviously in this car there's no physical buttons, it's all through that screen. So they have kind of implemented that in a software kind of way, so you haven't got the 1 to 6, you have got kind of like a swipe up from the bottom, gives you a kind of a shortcut tool belt almost in a way, and any option in the menu you can tap and hold on it, add as a shortcut, and then it will appear in that menu. And the thing I like about that is that the shortcuts that you add to that menu are also mirrored when you access the favourites through the head-up display, which you can access with a button. So the star button on the right hand side of the steering wheel, you press that, and all the shortcuts you've added to the main screen are what you can scroll through on here. So I can now bring up the vehicle status page without having to touch the screen. Alright, so that is quite a nice implementation of it. So you lose the buttons, but you still do have a tactile way of getting at them with the buttons on the steering wheel. So this level 3 car does have the kind of the top spec, and that includes all of the assisted driving tech, which is as far, if there are leap forwards to be found in this car over the F56, it's with the assisted driving tech. That is definitely one area where this leapfrogs the older car. So I've kind of got it with the speed limiter set at the moment, which is one thing I do like to drive in, is the speed limiter on these kind of country-ish roads. You kind of got full control over your accelerator in the regen, but you don't want to kind of tickle over the speed limit. That's one thing I found about driving a couple of other electric cars in my quest to replace my current Mini, is that not all other cars kind of let you have that balance between cruise control and the speed limiter, but I am glad that in this new Mini model you do still have that option to quickly on the steering wheel choose between speed limiter, what they call distance control, which is your just adaptive cruise control as it is, or active cruise control as it's called on the F56, which then brings in your steering assistance. This is very much one of the systems where it's best for the motorway. Everywhere else, I would just use your speed limiter or your distance control, which I'm going to now let the cars in front of us do the slowing down, if they slow down. But as you come up to speed signs, it does come up in the kind of head-up display, so it will show the speed limit you're currently in, and if it knows that there's a speed limit coming up, it'll kind of put it above it. If you press the set button on the steering wheel, it will accept that new speed limit as your kind of speed limiter, which I think is quite a nice implementation. The one thing I don't like about this assisted driving system is that where in before you would have separate buttons to adjust how close you are to the car in front. That is an option on the touchscreen. So again, you have to assign that menu to your favourites to get to. As you can see here, we've got the augmented camera view, which I believe is a level 3 specific feature. I feel like where it's scrabbling for grip, it feels like there's just that little bit delay from when you hit the throttle to when you zoom off. So I think it does pull slightly harder with a bit more torque than the F56. That initial kind of delay to get grip sort of makes it no faster in a way, where the F56, especially if you've got proper tyres on it, so you haven't got the factory Hancocks or whatever, you've got something like the Pirellis. This doesn't feel slower by any means, but if you're expecting a kind of a breakneck improvement, you're not going to find it here. And I'll be honest, that go-kart sound is wearing thin, so I'm going to come out back into cool mode. If there's one thing I was worried the most about going from an F56 into the J01 was that I don't like speedos in the middle of the screen. I need to have something in front of me. But I will say the head-up display in this car is fantastic. So if you are like me and you're very much an anti-center speedo, this head-up display will have you covered. So for me, if you're looking at one of these, I would say that the kind of the level 1 spec, where it is standard from at least level 1, which so I'm glad they haven't hidden it away at level 3. It is standard from a level 1 car. So I would implore you, if you are looking to order one of these, get a level 1 at least. Not just the head-up display, but also you kind of get a different light style on the front of the car. You don't kind of get like the kind of circular DRL, you kind of just get like a horizontal line through the middle of the light unit, which doesn't look very nice. It kind of spoils the look of the car. I think we've become accustomed to Minis having that kind of circular DRL, and to have a new model that doesn't have them as standard kind of just looks just a little bit odd. So do at least get a level 1. The SE models do start at level 1 spec, but if you're looking at an E model, you need to option level 1 at least. But if you're going for an SE, you will at least have the head-up display as standard, in the UK at least. As we're near the end of the drive, I'm going to use the favourites shortcut on the steering wheel to get back to the journey data. And let's see how efficient we've been. 5.6 miles per kilowatt hour, with the caveat that we did regen down a dual carriageway and then in towards kind of a couple of speed limits, and the car was already preconditioned in the sun, so the air conditioning load hasn't been particularly high. But even over 10 miles, 5.7 miles per kilowatt, I probably wouldn't have seen that in my F56, maybe 5. It is quite a warm day today. It's nearly 20 degrees, so it's kind of perfect electric car kind of temperature. It's quite a nice touch when you use certain indicator. It is reflected on the diagram there, and for whatever reason this diagram can be rotated. Comes back after a little while. If you're coming from an F56 Electric, you won't be disappointed, but if you're expecting a leap forward over the current or outgoing electric model, I think Mini are probably waiting to introduce a JCW model to really kind of offer that leap forward, because at the end of the day, this is a Cooper SE. The outgoing model was also a Cooper SE, so it's probably no surprise why they drive fairly similarly. if you're expecting this new model to blow your mind in terms of a leap forward in driving performance, you're not gonna find it here. Most things that you touch feel premium. The steering wheel is a very nice steering wheel. However, I would have thought that these kind of toggles would be better. They do feel quite cheap and a bit of wobble to them. Same with the indicators. I would have thought they'd feel a bit nicer. And these are the things you'll be using every single time you're in the car. And they don't feel like. I mean, this is an SE Sport with a level 3 pack, so I think the list price on this car is about £42,000, and that for that, and these controls are not good enough for a £42,000 car. These need to be better. I wonder if they're the same in the new Countryman JCW, because I think that costs at least 50 odd grand. And if they're the same in there, then that's just not good enough. The pillarless doors, when you open them, the slam is pretty bad. Pillarless doors never slam nicely anyway. If you've got an F56, you'll know that, but it's no better in this. If anything, a little bit more clangy and jittery. But maybe it's just first batch jitters. Maybe in a couple of months, when they've got more built some more and got them over, they'll be better. But I think, yeah, it's now 2 o'clock. I think the dealership are gonna be pining where I am. So I'll wrap this up here.